And let's start by talking about fans coming back into stadiums, or the lack of it, because it's clearly not happening at the minute. We've both got very strong opinions on this, but if we jump back a little bit, obviously the pandemic, between January and February, I think a lot of us here, especially in January, we're like, it's in China, it's far away, it's not going to affect us. Came to Italy, then came to France and Germany, and then it hit us. And fans stopped going into grounds in about March of this year. In all sporting contexts, really, and we went into lockdown. But it seemed like there was maybe a little bit of hope over the summer, at the end of the summer, with the talks about October, maybe the time when fans begin to come back into stadiums. But that once again seems to have been pushed all the way to March next year, which we're going to talk about the implications of that. How is that going to affect all of us and affect clubs and fans and players alike? But first of all, Kyle, let's have a chat about the effect of this, really, and your initial thoughts on fans not being allowed back into grounds.
Well, I think the general thing is a bit ridiculous. As you say, I have strong opinions on it because there have been test trials in various places. There was one, the Glasgow Edinburgh, 700 fans are allowed in, no coronavirus outbreaks. There's cases in football as well where it's happened. Up in Scotland, there was one of the Aberdeen games, my home city. It was like, I think it was like 700 fans were allowed in there. No COVID outbreak cases. Over in Germany, as you know, and in some other places in Europe, they're starting to allow fans back in slowly. Borussia Dortmund, they're allowing 11,000 folk into their 80,000-seater stadium. No COVID outbreaks so far. So, but I think, again, it just kind of ties into everywhere else where there have been spikes happening, and the authorities over here and across the whole of Britain have just panicked, really, just thinking, panic, and we need to stop this now. And it seems to be like the sports venues and the sports grounds that have taken the hit, even though if you actually look at it logically, there are ways that it can definitely work, getting fans back into the ground, whether it's like a third or quarter full stadiums, and to have like social distancing measures in place, hand sanitizer stations. I'm a bit skeptical on the masks, but I mean, folk can have their opinions on them. I'm not sure they should be compulsory because I think it's outdoors, and with social distancing, I don't think the mask would be as big an effect. Again, there might be some typing just saying, what are you talking about there? But like I say, I mean, like I said, as I said to you the other day, it was like a 20,000-seater stadium. I don't see how they couldn't fill that with 5,000 people. Max, let's say for now, maximum, social distancing across the stadium. And also, I think, at least for the short term, I wouldn't be selling alcohol at the games just because, folk can get and drink with them. But that's something I think could, like the fans coming back in, be introduced slowly. But yeah, I think the authorities have, again, they're just going along with the, every time there's a positive test or a wee spike somewhere, they just go into panic mode, and there's not much rationale being taken at all.
Exactly, I agree with you. And it's not just sport. I know that we're talking about rugby here, but things such as music. Someone high up in the government, I can't remember what his name said, people who are musicians should retrain. Things like that. That just is not. Rugby is a passion at the end of the day, but it's also a livelihood for a lot of people. But a lot of the examples you speak about, Borussia Dortmund, big football fan. I am 11,000 in a stadium, no problems at all. And I actually think when fans get back into the stadiums, if they get that opportunity, which they have shown already, they're responsible. They know, they understand the rules, they stick to the rules, and they've shown that they're capable of doing that. So I don't know what the issue really is. If they need to wear masks, that's fine. Hand sanitizing stations around the place. For people who don't know, I can't talk. I work in a water park, and the water park isn't massive. I won't name it, just in case my boss ever watches this. But we have over 100 people in there. And the reality is social distancing is not possible in there. People have to use common sense. If someone's coming past you, you move out the way. Or if you're queuing on a slide, you make sure you stood far enough away from each other. It's common sense. And yet children know this anyway. Adults know this. And so why do the government think that people would not be able to do this in a massive ground, which could potentially see, I don't know, let's take the Ospreys, for example, probably one of the biggest in the Pro 14, the Liberty, 20,000 seater stadium. How can you tell me that 5,000 people or less even cannot socially distance in that space? I don't understand that. And it's killing our game. At the top level, it's not too bad. But, at the lower levels, which we will get to in a second, and I'll get your opinion on that, it's a massive issue. Smaller teams, semi-professional teams, amateur teams on a Saturday where you can go and watch them for free. But the real way they make their money is through selling food on the day, selling drinks on the day, things like that. That revenue is just not coming in. It's killing our game.
Sorry, Brandon. It's worth mentioning that a lot of those lower down the professional game you mentioned, they're still not back playing yet. I mean, up in Scotland, it's only Glasgow and Edinburgh who are back playing again. The rest of us, like the levels I normally referee, like amateurs and schools, it's there's still teams training, but the games aren't starting up again. At the moment, it's 31st of October, but given the new restrictions that are put in place, there's expected to be another delay there. So, it's not looking very promising. I mean, even the thing at the top levels, because we have to understand also, rugby doesn't have the same revenue, doesn't generate the same revenue football does. There'll be a lot. I mean, then you look at some of the losses, especially like the RFU have made. Like, I stand to be corrected, but I think last I looked, it was like 180 million or something like that. And Scottish rugby, we've made 30 million losses during COVID. It's it's huge numbers that are unsustainable, and so there needs to be again, going forward, if you're wanting to progress the game, and even for future developments of looking to get players through to the top level, need to start getting more investment. And again, that's getting fans back in slowly, but it's it's going to be a long time before they make up the losses. But I mean, at least if they're getting let's say a quarter full stadiums, they'll be making some revenue and some of their losses back. But again, like how long it will take, I don't know. But I just think, as I said, authorities have gone into panic and aren't because you're right to say, I mean, you'll still get one or two idiots, but for the most part, folk have been responsible in the game in the games where fans have been allowed back in.